Can we welcome to the Bavard Bar stage, please, Rod Webb, who's going to tell us about Neurotribes. Rod. Yeah, you've got that there. That clock, the clicker is here. And there you go.
Neurotribes. Here's a little baby. 1, 2, 3. Look at that sweet little face. But who will he be? No idea. This is the weird thing. You have kids, you've no idea how they're going to grow up. At all. I mean, am I right?
Yeah.
Right. There was a woman who did a talk in February who had an inkling that something was wrong. Does anyone come to the one on autism? Yeah. So she had an inkling that something was a bit weird. But generally we haven't got a clue. So this is the same one at about 1 year old. Nice little baby still. Looking a bit more like a boy there, 1.5 perhaps. 7, still sweet little chap. Adolescence, about 16, you know, we'll get over that one. And late 20s. Now, I had no idea he was going to turn out like that. He had blonde hair when he was born. He was a sweet little baby, and he turned out like this. So, you know, forget all the mental issues. Physically, I don't know who he is. Anyway, so my passion, I guess, is trying to make sense of the world. You know, where did that child come from, for example? And I've been trying to make sense of the world all my life. That has led me to read a lot about psychology. I haven't succeeded yet. I know a little bit about the world, but not a lot. And that possibly... No, we do. Yeah, we're doing all right. That possibly led me... Now, we haven't got the words here. I don't know...
Sorry about that.
Are they, yeah, anyway. This led me to TEFL teaching. I don't know if anyone knows what TEFL teaching is. It's teaching English as a foreign language. Well, English is a foreign language to me, and I got an O pass. I don't know if you remember that. Far back, I got an O pass in my O levels, which is the lowest possible grade you could get. Then I ended up as an English teacher, so I think, oh look, it's on my arm here, look. Teaching confronts you with the perplexities of human nature. I couldn't remember that bit. Every time you go in the classroom. So it is an amazing thing, teaching, and perfect for someone who's looking for the meaning of life. I was also looking for nice locations. I did find some. I was in Paris, I was in Algeria, amazing place. I was in Kuwait, quite smells of oil a lot. And I spent 10 years in Bahrain and Qatar, so I travelled a lot. Anyway, you can't read that. Opera reference. What I actually discovered, now this might seem obvious to you, but what I discovered was that people are different. But how different is the extraordinary thing? So this isn't the actual young lady in question, but I was teaching an intermediate class in Paris, lovely group of about 10 people, and you try and get them to speak natural English and all that kind of thing, so you put them in pairs, you put them in groups. Actually, perhaps we could do that now. Would you like to do that? No, we do. And they're supposed to talk about themselves and listen to the other person talk about themselves. Anyway, there's this one girl, she just wasn't interested at all. So, because I was in search of the meaning of life, I invited her out to a bar. I've forgotten why I did that, actually. Anyway. And then we were sitting, we got comfortable, and I said to her, a couple of months ago I broke my leg. And I waited. Nothing. I said, I've just said I broke my leg, aren't you interested, are you going to say something? And she said, well, I'm not interested in people. And there was my answer. Some people have no interest in other people's lives. And so if you asked her to talk about herself, and listened to someone else talking, wasn't interested. So I gave up on her and went and taught another class. Then I got this amazing job in Bahrain and then later on in Qatar, where I sort of worked for government schools, and I was sort of seconded, which meant that I didn't have a boss and I could do what I liked and wander around just, you know, checking them out and doing anything. And as you can see, very interesting people, different. I should say that this guy here, I do recognise him because he's a real type and he's rather difficult. Anyway, not only were the kids interesting and I could talk to anyone I wanted and visit them whenever I felt like it, but the teachers all came from different parts of the Arab world. So we had Syrians, we had Palestinians, we had Egyptians, we had Tunisians, we had whatever, and they were all very much... I'm going to make a generalisation. Is that okay? Are you okay with generalisations? Right. So Palestinians were all very similar to each other, Egyptians were all very similar to each other, and they were all completely different from the other nationality. That's a big generalisation. And I can say one thing, Syrians, are there any Syrians present in the house? Syrians always had a very hard time when teaching in their first year. And the reason was very simple, because it's quite a military society, and when they walked into the room as a teacher, they expected obedience. And they didn't get it from this lot. Okay? These were the most undisciplined bunch that you could ever meet. So they felt offended. Alright? So there are a lot of similarities, and it was fascinating and getting to know these people. Wonderful. Anyway, you might know this guy. Have you ever come across him before? His name is Rory Bremner, and my wife, who's sitting up here, she listened to a program about 6 years ago, and he started talking about the fact that he had ADHD in the family, and maybe he had ADHD, and he was rambling on about this, that, and the other. And my wife thought, hang on, that's just like my husband, which is me. Right? So she came at home and told me, I think you might have ADHD. And I thought it was great, because if you have ADHD, you like that kind of thing. You think that's really funny. You know, you don't think, oh my God, you think that's really good. So I thought that was funny. Then Alan Sugar came along, or my actual boss, and he fired me. This was a year later. And we had this really horrible, what do you call them? Hang on, my mouse going, excuse me. It always goes dry about that moment. We had this outsourced HR company, which was the nastiest bunch of people that you could ever meet. So they were being horrible to me and saying why I was needed to be fired, etc. And I chucked into the mix, well, you know I've got ADHD, don't you? And if you throw in the disability card, they used to get scared. They don't anymore, they just try and kill you. But back in the day, they used to get quite scared. So, of course, they said, well, have you been diagnosed? And I said, no, but I will be. And within a week, I had a diagnosis. So then I knew I had ADHD, and that's how I ended up in St Leonard's as a freelance publisher rather than working for a company. And in St Leonard's, I found people a lot like me. And I think it's because they're creative people, and I think an awful lot of creative people have ADHD. So St Leonard's is full of people with ADHD. And I'm going to... Hang on, is there anyone from St Leonard's here? Okay, fair enough. Now, you may wonder where this is going and why this is going in all sorts of directions. That's because I have ADHD. We cannot keep on track, alright? So, that's my head, all sorts of thoughts whizzing all over the place, and, you're experiencing it. By the way, I'm not sure when we started actually. Did you know the average words per minute is 130, and I should be about 4 minutes into the talk by now, according to the number of words in the script. I'm obviously getting behind. Anyway, further over to it's ADHD. Now this is Andrew Lewis, a writer, coach, director of Simply Wellbeing, and he's a fabulous person when you want to understand about ADHD. So we're going to hear a lot from him right now. First of all, he's going to tell us why doctors are useless. Oh my God, what's happened to that? Doesn't matter, the text has gone all funny. Anyway, research to date is limited. Well, you can read it. So, what doctors tell you about ADHD is pretty useless. You need to go to somebody like, whatever his name is, Andrew Lewis, if you want to know about it. And he came up with an integrated model, right? Very nice name. And these are the kind of main headings: an understimulated mind, weak executive functions, dominant right brain thinking. Now, if you look at those three things, you'll find some of them at least which are cause for concern. All right? For example, weak executive functions doesn't bode well for people. My God, this is a bit weird. He fleshed it all out a bit. So the first one, whatever that was, understimulated mind, I think, yeah. These are other aspects. Interest-based focus, memory shortfalls, stimulation-seeking behaviours. And again, second one, don't send me shopping because I'll forget everything. Stimulation-seeking behaviour. I spend most of my afternoons at the pub. No, sorry, no, it's not. No, that's not stimulation. No, that's doing other very bad things. No. Interest-based focus. Well, that could be good, I suppose. I don't know. The next one, less self-control. Bad. Poor sense of time in the future. I have a big clock here to remind me of the time. And maverick nature. Well, some people like mavericks, some hate them, so who knows. The other one, which I can't remember, something here, right brain thinking, pattern recognition, reward from creativity, which is why, of course, people go into being musicians and artists and whatever. Emotional drive, that probably translates as getting angry easily, something like that. So, lots of problems. On the understimulated mind, this is what, whatever his name is, Andrew, I think, has to say. Does that make any sense to anybody? Does it resonate with anyone? Maybe you have ADHD.
I was a naughty child. That was labelled naughty when
Well, there you go. So, self-diagnosis here.
The label was naughty, not ADHD in my day.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Anyway, so something like that. You're just desperate for something, and you're lost in a desert, and you're looking for something, and you often find the wrong things. So, I'm not sure what the first bit is, but anyway. Homework, tax returns, household chores. The understimulated mind struggles with this stuff. Now, you might say that you struggle with these things, but you do not struggle to the same extent as people with ADHD. It's 100 times worse. It's absolutely horrible. And without a proper conductor, the lives of people with ADHD are less ordered. Okay? So, chaos. Now, you've probably heard of social workers, and they're always dealing with people, families with chaotic lives, and this is considered to be, a problem. Well, I experience a chaotic life every day, and my wife will bear that out. So, this is something like, this kind of explains it a little bit. Think this is bad, and that's my office, looks just like that. You should see the inside of my head. Sorry you can't read these things, but there you go. But there's a yin as well as a yang. There's good things as well as bad things. But I can't remember which is the yin and which is the yang. Which is the good one? Is it yin? Is it? I don't know. Nobody knows? Nobody knows. Anyway, there is a good and a bad. Let's call it that. So, that's good. I think. Is that good?
Yeah.
Right. I said that's bad, but it could be good. The wrestling bit is the bad bit, I think. You know, constantly fighting with yourself and beating yourself up and not looking after yourself because you're beating yourself up. That's a good one, I think. So we're good at problem solving because we wrestle with problems and then we have intuitions and we solve them. It's fabulous. That's good. The thing is called Neurotribes. So we're coming back onto track, and this illustrates all the other ones, or a lot of the other ones. So we've got here, can't read it, but I think it says dyspraxia, dyslexia, ADHD, autistic spectrum, and neurodiversity in the middle. It says difficulties with organisation, memory, concentration, time, something or other. Anyway, all sorts of problems. But they're not the same. So autism is completely different from ADHD, but there are a few similarities, like that says there, defiance, something behaviour, being horrible as a child. So there are all these different things. There are comorbidities sometimes, so you can actually have both at the same time, but they are all different. So these are the neurotribes. That one is my tribe, as well as a lot of people in St Leonard's, which is very nice. So this focuses on the difficult things, all the bad things. It says impulsive, it says, I don't know, why isn't this bigger? It says problems with reading and writing and things like that. And then a little tiny bit here it says, but there are some good things. What I want to say, really, is there's a whole lot of good things, but they tend to focus on the bad things. Now, I don't know if you know this Diagnostic Statistic Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM-5, there used to be 1 and now it's 5. There are 297 categories of mental disorders. What's the time? How are we doing? I've no idea where we are.
You're about on time. You're about 15, but carry on. A couple more.
About 15. All right, so I'll rush through. Right. So, So people don't like labels, right? But people do actually love to be labelled. Phew, they go. I'm really happy. Going quickly now. This is a girl who's talking about being so happy that she's being labelled. It's an article in the Guardian if you want to read about it. But it is hard having ADHD. So I'm going to say, please be understanding, all right? We try hard. We don't want to talk over you, We do want to listen to what you say. We talk over you. We're sorry, all right? So what is normal, okay? Now, complex societies, this is from Andrew again. The need for acceptance of social constructs like government, laws, marriage, religion, there was an evolutionary forcing factor for compliance. That's the difference between St Leonard's and Eastbourne. Right? And there is a view that the whole evolutionary reason that ADHD gene has survived is because there was also a need, as you can see, this is the ADHD person, this is the compliant ones. I think you can get it. Yeah. We wouldn't have blockchain, but who wants blockchain anyway? But we're always pushing the boundaries, okay? So you have all these people who are being nice citizens, and on the edge you have people pushing the boundaries and falling off cliffs and doing all sorts of dangerous things, but they're needed by society, otherwise society won't progress. Right, at the moment, we don't want it to progress, it's progressing too fast, but that's another story. So, what of the future? Almost there. The geeks have already won, so we're all totally immersed in IT now. Those are the sort of autistic spectrum. They've already shoved all their stuff on you, and we're all suffering from that. It gets worse. Because I was talking to my son, who is in change management, and the words disrupt, create, and all these things that apparently we do are now the new management theory. So the whole ADHD head is now being rolled out across the world. So all I can say is good luck.
Fabulous. So, Eastbourne, how are you feeling now? Do we have? Thank you, Rod. That was a brilliant talk. Do we have any questions for Rod? Do we have anybody who wants to delve into the ADHD mind? Yes.
What really struck me from your talk was that you said that obviously the genes didn't die out, and surely because these neurotribes still exist, then there must be, by definition, benefits that have helped the evolution. Yeah?
Absolutely. So dyslexics are architects, as you probably know. IT people are... Whoops, are we on? Are we off?
Here we go.
What's it
Do
doing?
this one.
Yeah, IT people are... they do stuff. They get the geeks, yeah. So yeah, there are benefits, absolutely.
And you thought the scientists would have clicked that?
But scientists are people. And according to people who have ADHD, most people are very stupid. I'm sorry.
Any other? Yeah, that's a very big point. Yes, Fiona. Yeah.
So when you were diagnosed with ADHD, how did that affect you?
As I said, when I heard the original thing from my wife, I was thrilled. But more than anything, it was so explanatory of my whole life. I felt different and I couldn't figure out why. And so I went right back to my childhood and everything I'd done. So when I went off as a TEFL teacher, this was the understimulated mind. I needed to travel to be stimulated. I couldn't sit in an office. I had to travel because you need stimulating from the outside. Okay, so yeah, explain everything. Hitchhiking.
And that made you feel better?
Yeah, to find that out, to find out about myself. Wonderful, yeah. Absolutely.
Any other questions for Rod? Yes. Yeah.
Are there levels of it? And what I mean by it, for want of a better expression, can you have heavy ADHD and can you have light?
I'm not entirely sure, but I would say one thing. That kids who have it as a child, roughly a third of them, the brain reconfigures and everything's sort of back to normal. Roughly a third end up in prison or drug addicts because they can't cope, and a third learn strategies to cope with having it. Because as an adult, you can kind of figure out, well, actually, that's not a good idea, perhaps because someone's told me, and you can start sort of, to some extent, doing things which aren't so stupid. So, but I think probably there is to some extent, degrees.
Almost like a spectrum.
But I'm really not sure about that, to be honest.
Maybe a third then live in St Leonard's and...
Right, yeah.
Yes.
No, I was going to say that the functioning ones, a lot of them actually aren't functioning.
So to some degree, during your talk, you seem to allay the creative mind to ADHD.
Absolutely, yeah.
So some of the great artists, great musicians, great thinkers of our time.
Quite likely. I mean, we don't know, but I think it's quite probable. And the way, one of the characteristics is making links. So you're constantly making links. So when if you're speaking to someone with ADHD, they'll be talking and you'll say something and they'll suddenly shoot off in another direction because what you've said links with something and they'll go, oh yeah, that reminds me. A bit like Tim, actually.
I'm self-diagnosed, Ron. Any final question, and then we're going to take a break.
I just wondered what your experience was in your earlier years of teaching English, which is, in general, a left brain subject.
No, not teaching English as a foreign language. It's very performance related. It attracts all the show-offs.
Doing English in English schools?
No, this was all in private schools and things like that.
It was all abroad?
All abroad, yeah. You're just, it's just an excuse to have a laugh, really. No, you look a bit cross, but no. I should have taken it more...
Could you ever have taught English in a left brain
Well,
way?
I would say something. There are some fabulous teachers that I've heard about who don't last very long. So they're fabulous because the kids love them, they do extremely well, and then they end up getting the boot. So I think they don't fit in the kind of bureaucratic government schools situation in the UK. Probably.
We had a talk on education actually. Russ, you gave a talk on education, didn't you? Brilliant. And so touched on some of those issues. I'm gonna stop there because I'm conscious of time and I'm conscious of the warmth of the room and we need another drink. But thank you ever so much, Rod. Can we put our hands together?